Hari Om, Chapter 14. We have seen that people in the very same family, in the same kutumba, can have vastly differing temperaments and tendencies. So these temperaments and tendencies are something that Krishna is going to dwell upon in order to have us understand that once we are aware of what are these tendencies driving us, we can overcome them. And the whole purpose is then to go beyond in order to contemplate on the highest truth, which is what Bhagavan calls mama. Mama means keep your mind on me, on the highest truth. And that highest truth, of course, is never changing or never diminishing also. And it is the same, ever the same, and in the same frequency or quality, or these words of course don't describe it, but in the same intensity everywhere, every time. That consciousness we ignore. We are caught up in all the changing variety of diverse things happening around us, including within our bodies, then within our minds, then within our families, then within our society and community. We are caught up with all the things that we perceive as changing. And of course they are changing. They're not only perceived as such. They are changing constantly, and therefore our mind seems to be engaged constantly with what is happening in this prakriti of mind, body, intellect, society, vastu, vyakti, everywhere. Such a mind, Bhagavan is saying, is probably not the right kind of mind, the right quality of mind for you to reach me. That is Krishna, the highest truth. So what is the quality of mind I must cultivate? That quality or climate of mind is actually what is being termed as guna. We all are born with different gunas, and some of us also cultivate them. So we have a choice, as well as we have an inherited form of personality. Let's say that it is inherited because of our crystallized past practice of so many years of and so many births of having practiced a certain quality of thought and action. What are these gunas? Of course we know it. Even if we look at two characters in the Mahabharata, Duryodhan and Arjun, we will say, oh yes, they belong to the same kutumba, of course, and they have been educated by and large by the same gurus. So their education and nourishment has also been of a similar quality, but how vastly different they are. Why do they differ so much? So Duryodhan is constantly in need of approval and for fame, for power, and he is actually extremely restless because he needs to achieve his ambition. He has this ambition and recognition. So he is in a constant state of wanting. I want, and I'm ready to do any karma for fulfilling that want. Of course, Duryodhan is an extreme case. What he has done is that he has taken recourse to war. To a lesser extent, we are also involved in a lot of wars in our life, because we are ready to take very strong measures, give up this or that, and to achieve what we think is necessary for us. And therefore, we get into this Duryodhan state of mind, let's call it that, which is actually a Rajasic state of mind. In the same family, and you will find this everywhere in every family, you will find differing temperaments. How? How is it possible? So Arjun here is of a different temperament, although they are cousins. And he is someone who has completely surrendered, and he wants to know the highest truth. And he says, why am I here? What is the purpose of this war, first of all? And what is the purpose of my life? And if everything is impermanent, including the fame that I'm going to get or the kingdom that I'm going to get, then what's the purpose? Shall I just take sannyas? See the way Arjun's mind is working. Now in chapter 14, Bhagavan is telling all of us, because we are all in the Arjun and Duryodhan state of mind. He's telling all of us can you first be aware of which of the gunas your mind is predominantly dwelling in at any point in time? So in the morning, maybe I felt, it keeps changing, of course. So in the morning, I felt, there must be a way for my friend to start a business. So I started getting involved in her startup business and making plans and commercial charts, etc. Why was I getting into it? It was just something I was not watching. And I came home and there was a natural propensity to get back to the books, to get back to the notes and say, okay, this is the plan for the day, these are the shlokas. And in a natural way, one is drawn into in a sattvic mood, from rajasic to sattvic. In how much time? Within the span of half a day. This happens to us every day. Are we aware of it? So, sattvic, rajasic and tamasic, how are they influencing us? And how are they keeping us closer to God, taking us closer or taking us further from God? This is the whole theme of chapter 14. You mean our own gunas are driving us away from or closer to God? Yes, it is our own gunas. Although consciousness has nothing to do with gunas. This is made of prakriti. Prakriti, which is the world of matter, that is mind, body, intellect. And yet it is influencing our entire destiny, even our attainment of spiritual life. Am I going to attain nirvana or moksha in this life? Maybe not a good chance, but in some other life ahead, it all depends on what gunas you are cultivating and we are cultivating. So, coming to sattvic, rajasic and tamasic, all of us are dwelling in these at any given point in time. Bhagavan says, Prakriti and Purush come together. I sow the seeds, he said in verse number 4, of creation in this sansar. Sow the seeds of creation, meaning that all the tendencies are already, meaning they are in seed form, in samashti, in that vast universe, and they just fructify or they come into being in the form of sansar and human beings, and that is called creation, and that seed is sown by me, says Krishna, which means that all tendencies already exist and now we are manifesting some of them. Now, Bhagavan now goes on to talk about these three gunas which are going to change the course of our life. In fact, not only this life, but the entire destiny of our future lives as to how far we are going to be from moksha or truth. So that's how important it is. And therefore in Bhagavad Gita we will find that this topic has been dealt with before. It has come again, I think it was dealt with in chapter 7 and now 14. And in 17 and 18 there will be a great depth of explanation. Why is Krishna taking so much pain to explain this one concept in so much detail? 2 more chapters will be taken up, because that is actually going to design our destiny. Are we going to be free finally, or are we going to be constantly born again and again because of our actions and be plunged into the pangs of birth and then growth and janma mrityu jara vyadhi, the whole cycle. We are all part of the cycle. How many million times we want to be part of the same cycle? That freedom which we are seeking should become a thirst. It should become a trishna, a thirst within us. So, chapter 14, verse number 5, Bhagavan says, let me begin by explaining. He says, what are these qualities first of all? Only then you can recognize them and work upon them and change them in yourself if you so wish. He is telling Arjuna. Verse number 5. Sattvic guna, okay? Sattvam, rajas, tam iti gunaha. Sattvam, rajas and tamas. Gunaha prakriti sambhavaha nibhadnanti mahabaho dehe namavyayam. Although you are indestructible, just like your cousins and all the enemies so-called ranged against you and your gurus, they are all indestructible. You are not going to kill them, Arjun, so do not sink into despair. Nothing is going to happen to them. You and they are all indestructible because they are Atma. And at the same time, this Atma seems to be, let's call it appears to be bound by something which is driving it, and that is the nibadhananti, means it's bound by the three passions, sattvam, rajas and tamas. Now sattvam can't be called a passion because it actually stands for, sattvam as we have seen stands for clarity, for equanimity, for a kind of joy and a bliss and a thirst for knowledge, and a love for silence and contemplation. So yes, it's not a passion. Then rajasic good, it is a kind of passion. So at any given point in time, when we are alone and also when we are in company, can we train the mind to keep looking at itself, to keep turning inward and observing itself? After some time it becomes a natural habit to turn within and say, oh, what's going on in my mind right now? Am I feeling a sense of craving? Am I listening to this person who is talking maybe at a party or a gathering, and I'm listening to that person, and that person is full of himself or herself, talking about his achievements and his acquisitions and possessions, and making me feel that, oh, this is what you should be doing too. Am I getting pulled into this kind of a thought? If I'm not watching, I will get pulled into it. All kinds of thoughts. So we also have to be very careful about the kind of company we keep, because it is only human beings who are capable of making a dramatic change in the quality of our lives. How? Through two things. One is through satsang, seeking the company of those who want to talk about the truth, and who can read about it, or who can explain it, or who are trying to incorporate it in their lives. Just by reading it, just by listening, we have been listening for so long, it doesn't sort of transform our lives. But then the effort is on. Are we in the company of such people? Do we seek out the company of such people so that our mind is directed towards the same search? This is called satsang. Satsang is possible only in human form. Animals, they keep company, yes, but that is for hunting together, killing together, or procreating together, or if they are social animals, like the lions, the pride of lions, then they keep together as a family. No, that's not satsang. Only humans are capable of satsang. What is the other thing that can dramatically change our lives and which only humans are capable of? That is vivek. We know this word vivek. We have heard it so many times. Vivek is the power to discern between sat and asat. What is true, what is not. What is permanent, what is impermanent. The moment we keep our mind attention, the attention of the mind shifts to what is permanent, what am I getting into, why am I reacting to this impermanent something which is bothering me for a brief moment. I am free from it the moment I look at it with vivek. So satsang and vivek are the strongest powers we have as human beings. The other creatures, poor things, they don't even have this power. So at any given point in time, are we able to, and also contemplation and atma nirigraha, that means looking at ourselves. Introspection is also a possibility only in human form. So when we look at our mind, is it at the moment that there is some resentment, some niggling thought about a slight that was felt in some social gathering? Is it some comparison? Is it some small unfulfilled desire which is actually subconsciously hanging on somewhere in the subconscious and I don't know about it and it keeps surfacing? All this is going on, and who can be the master? The master of this thought process can be the one who is able to observe it. So we are the observers, and these gunas, they cannot observe themselves because they are prakriti. Prakriti by definition is inert, it is gross, it is jada, and therefore if we are able to observe our gunas, which means that we are the master of the gunas. Now this sattva, rajas and tamas are binding us, says Bhagwan in verse number 5. How? Let's see further, verse number 6. Bhagwan says, of these three gunas, he says, let me define sattva first, completely. So it's like a book of definitions, like a physics book. So if light or refraction is being talked about, then light and refraction, etc., are going to be defined properly. So this is a very scientifically designed book, the Bhagavad Gita, just like a science book. Bhagavan says, let me first define sattva guna for you. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvar prakashakamanāmayam. Of these, sattvic guna is the one which brings nirmal, purity, serenity, equanimity, and there is a sense of being santushta. Santushta meaning satisfied, contented. There is a, not because I've got this or that, but contentment per se. Already there is a contentment. Very often we say, oh, now I've got what I really have wanted for a long time, and now I am contented. No, that's not that kind of temporary contentment which we feel every time we have satisfied some new desire. No. This santushtaha nirmalatvat, it's pure, it's stainless, it just cannot be stained. That is a quality of a sattvic mind. And he goes on to say, prakashakamanāmayam, in the second half of the first line. It is also luminous. And anamayam. What is anamayam? It says it's a healthy mind. Any psychologist will tell you that a healthy mind and a healthy body are both needed for us to function in society. But here Bhagavan is not even talking about being functional in society. He's saying, don't forget your ultimate aim. The ultimate aim is moksha, to reach me. For that you need a healthy mind. And what's this healthy mind? Let's define it. So the healthy mind is one where there is anamayam. Here actually stands for all the ulcerations and hurts and dejections and despondencies and people's so-called hurtful words, which are actually draining out our mental energy at any given point in time. And because this energy is flowing out, there is a restlessness in the mind and ulcerations of the mind, carrying some old grudge or hurt or this or that. Anamayam, this cannot be a healthy mind. We need a healthy mind to drop all this, and therefore the mind becomes anamayam, meaning without disease, let's call it. Simple word. No disease in the mind, he says, only then you will have a stillness. A stillness of mind is needed because you can ask any artist or scientist or writer or creator or meditator or seeker or a sant or a mahatma that only the quiet mind has a powerful potential to reach us anywhere. A powerful potential to reach us anywhere. So the artist will say, a quiet mind is where I am at my creative best. I create my best poetry or literature or art or painting, whatever. In the same way, a researcher or a scientist will say that I need completely to be detached from this sansar, this noisy place of everyday duties and family and this and that. And the scientist also becomes a kind of a recluse, staying away. And because it's actually the quiet of mind which they are seeking. But of course, the creative artist and the researcher and the meditator, all these are seeking worldly knowledge, right? They want something from the world, some piece of poetry or something that will bring them fame, or a piece of art, yes. But what about the seeker? The seeker wants a quiet mind only and only so that he can reach God. There is no seeking in this sansar. So there is a kind of vairag or detachment in all of them. But for the seeker, it is for God, for Bhagwan. I want a quiet mind because it's the powerful force of a quiet mind, which is unclouded by the noise of the world. And therefore, the very strong word used here, anamayam. Bhagwan says, I need a mind which is not diseased by all the noise that you have created and ulcerations in your own mind. I need that kind of a mind. Okay. But what is the quality of such a mind? Bhagavan says, prakashak. It is a prakashakam, luminous. By luminous we mean what? It simply means that when the clouds have moved, nothing new has happened. The sun just shines through. In the same way, when all the diseases of our mind which we carry through our interactions with the world, and with which we are draining out our spiritual mental energy, when all that is cleared up in a quiet mind, that is a sattvic mind, we are describing a sattvic mind, guna, what happens? It is the prakash of Bhagwan which just shines through. So we don't have to do an additional puja and archana and tapa and japa. You will notice that those Mahatmas who are realized people, they don't do any special, they don't carry an altar or a god with them like we Grihastha, we are ordinary Grihastha people. The god and the altar and the puja and the agarbatti and rituals, they don't need to do it because they have gone beyond it. What has happened is that they are not now invoking God because the mind has become so clear. It has become prakashakam. That's a beautiful word used here of a sattvic mind. That the luminosity of Bhagwan consciousness just shines through. It's like saying that I just cleared the dust from the window pane and I did not have to then pray to God, God, please come through. God was already there as light. And therefore, when we say, oh, where's God? Where do I seek? In this tirtha and that temple and this puja and that ritual? No, why? We need all that because our mind is already unsteady. But God does not need all that. He says, I'm already there. So Prakashakam, the moment the cloud is cleared, Bhagwan's consciousness shines. Through whom? Through our own mind. That means we become divine. No, we are divine. That divinity just shines through. It is only uncovered. That is what Bhagwan says by sattvic mind. So he says, those people whom you see around you, and we also have those moments, small moments of sattvic guna. Of course, we are not completely bereft of sattvic guna. And in those moments or in those people whom we see sattvic guna, we will notice equanimity, stillness, quiet, magnanimity, and there is a kind of santosh. Santosh is contentment. It's okay if things are going on, that's fine. And there is a delight and a happiness also. They're not morose just because they are vairagi or detached. They're not morose. They have a terrific sense of humor. In fact, they are able to laugh at the pettiness of the world. But they have a lot of compassion too. For all of us who are ordinarily quite bound by the sorrows of the world and the joys, of course. Sukha and dukha is binding us. But they look upon us with great compassion. Because their mind is not colored with judgment. Oh, you poor creatures, don't you have this much gyan? No, they are not even judging us. They are in self-control and they are tranquil people. And in their company, we find tranquility. That's why we say satsang is important. Because even words sometimes are not needed, because in the company of a realized person or a sattvic person, let's say of a sattvic guna, we somehow get the vibrations of sattvic guna and we like to be in the company of such people. So there is a sense of fulfillment. They just carry that fulfillment with them. And we are the people who say, I will get fulfillment when what? When I get my next car, when this car which is giving trouble gets repaired, when my daughter gets married, when my grandchild gets to a good institution, when goes on. So my fulfillment in any case is suspended into oblivion. It is not with me. Fulfillment is not with me because I have already conditioned it with when this happens, when that happens. So a sattvic mind, that is a different mind. It says, I'm okay. Whatever happens around me, I am fulfilled. And therefore they carry a sense of selflessness and cheerfulness with them. And gratitude that whatever they are able to do is the grace of God. Now this sattvic state of mind, of course we are all capable of all three gunas, but how long and how consciously we want to hold on to the sattvic state of mind is what will drive us closer and closer to Bhagwan or to truth or to the Lord. Now, what remember Bhagavan has said that Sattvic Gun also comes from Prakriti. It is not the nature of consciousness. Oh, I see. If it is Prakriti, then how can it free me? It can free us only when we treat the Sattvic mind as our means, not as our goal. It is not my goal to become santushta and contented and tranquil and silent and say, okay, I'm fine. No, that is a means and a method. That's when the Paramatma shines through as Prakasham in our life, Prakashakam. Now, the catch, there's a catch here too. Even in the Sattvic mind, there's a catch. Yes, because it is Prakriti. Everything in Prakriti has a catch. The catch is that in the second line, Bhagavan says, Sukha Sangena Badhnati. It is bound. Even Sattvic mind can bind you with golden chain. Why? Because that mind is also attached to the Sukha, the tranquility, the serenity, the Sukha which it is getting out of that quietness. We say, I want that quietness. I like it that way. And if I don't get it, and if I get into noisy company or rude company or people who want to show us down and we are taken aback, I don't know, something in the world is always surprising us or shocking us, and then we say, no, I don't like this, which means what? I have lost my tranquility and I'm unhappy. That unhappiness is our bondage. We have to remember only one thing. The whole crux of the Gita is that if you can experience unhappiness, strong, lasting, deep-rooted sorrow and unhappiness about anything, about losing anything, that means we are bound. We are in bondage. We are badhnati. We are bound. It is binding us. Why? Because it is, even in Sattvic, Sukha, when we lose that Sukha, we say, oh, I want it, I dislike it. So, wanting something itself is a kind of bondage. So, you see the small catch here? Then how can I have a Sattvic mind and seek silence? Do not seek it. It is something that will come upon us the moment we get detached. So, Bhagavan is saying, in two ways, your Sattvic Guna, your own Sattvic Guna is binding you to the world. One is your desire for that Sukha, which is brought about by quietness. And secondly, in the second part he says, Jnana Sangena Chanaga, your attachment to the Jnana. What brings this freedom from sorrow and serenity and quiet and vairag, detachment? Knowledge naturally. When we gain knowledge that, oh, everything is impermanent, I'm chasing something impermanent and trying to hold on to it, so let me just get away from it. This knowledge brings me serenity. Now, this knowledge can also bring me aham, pride or arrogance. That I have knowledge, so and so doesn't have knowledge. See how they are wallowing in sorrow and or calm, and see how they are wallowing in krodha or lobha or irsha. Now the moment I am judging someone else, what I am doing is I am becoming a victim of pride and arrogance of my own knowledge. Bhagavan says, be careful. See how carefully Krishna and our poet here has actually described the quality of our own mind. He's telling Arjun, be careful, your mind can be a very devious thing. So, in conclusion, two things are going to bind you. In your Sattvic Guna also. One is your desire for more and more of that Sukha and Shanti which you get from Sattvic mind, and your arrogance about the knowledge, because a Sattvic mind is capable of a quiet, powerful mind. That powerful mind can be used to study the scriptures, or to do tapa, or to do japamala, or to do meditation, because all these require focus and concentration. That power which we are getting out of a quiet mind, we are harnessing that power in order to get knowledge. But if we get pride out of that knowledge, he said, okay, you're going to be bound by your own Sattvic Gun. Bound meaning you'll be just part of Prakriti and not free from it. Let me just read this beautiful verse again. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat the purity, serenity of a sattvic mind. Prakashakam. It is a mind without disease and it is luminous. Prakashakam. Sukha sangena badhnati. But when I am attached to the sukha, I get out of it, I am bound. Badhnati. Jnana sangena chanagha. And also I am bound if I am attached to the jnana which I am getting out of it. So the joy and sukha and jnana, if I get attached to it, that means I want it. The wanting of anything is a form of servitude or slavery or bondage or sorrow. Anything. We know, of course, the wanting of, small ordinary objects of the world. Bhagavan is saying, no, even the highest objects of the world, if you desire, your desire is going to bind you. So this is a warning from Bhagavan. So I'm reminded of a story, and maybe we have heard this before, of a saint who was from North India, and somehow he wandered into the southernmost part of South India, and he really did not know much of the language. But he had learned one word, parvailla. Parvailla actually means it's okay. That's all right. So when he wandered into this village, he would be sitting under a tree, and of course there was great serenity and equanimity and silence and quietude around him, his whole aura. So people were attracted to him. See, people are attracted because they are also looking for the same serenity and quietude and anand and silence. Why is everyone looking for it? They are naturally looking for it because that is their swarupa, their swabhava. We are all looking for our own swabhava, which we seem to have lost somewhere. Anyway, coming back to the story. So people are naturally attracted to someone who sits under a tree and is quite unconcerned about how people conduct themselves, and he brings a certain kind of peace to them by his very presence, and so they revered him. One day, and you know this story, I'm quite sure, but it's relevant here. One day, a young woman in the village got pregnant, and she of course was berated by her family, and the father in anger wanted to know who the young man was. So the girl was so frightened, she was so very frightened, that she actually named this saint, and she said, this is the saint who's the father of my child. Now the villagers turned against this saint, and they turned him out of the village, they berated him, they admonished him, of course they tortured him, and they sent him out along with this young lady out into the village. And what did the saint say? Oh, I'm the father. Oh, okay, parvagilla. He hardly knew the meaning of the word, but that's all he used to convey his feelings, and he said parvagilla. Now they set up a small cottage outside on the outskirts of the village, because the villagers wouldn't allow them into their own village, and they were ostracized, completely excommunicated. After a while, the young lady was she felt pangs of conscience, because she knew that she had told a lie, and this saint actually looked after the baby and the young lady, and he did whatever he could to keep them alive and healthy. Seeing all this, the woman was struck by conscience, and then she admitted to the village head. She said, I want to admit something. I want to say that actually this saint is not the father of my child. It is a young fisherman whom I met on the shore. Now the villagers turned again back to the cottage, and with all pomp and reverence and respect and adulation, they brought this saint back to the village. And he said, what do you think he said? He said, parvagilla, it's okay. Is that so? Okay. So he did what needed to be done. This is of course an extreme case, but it simply goes to show that he is not a victim of his own habits. Neither is he a slave to the sattvic guna. Oh, where is my peace of mind gone? I am being beaten by the villagers. I am being thrown out. Yes. So now the outer circumstances are not going to decide whether he is going to be quiet or silent or fulfilled or happy or sukhi. In fact, he is going to bring the quality of sukha and silence and equanimity and composure to the situations around him. This is probably what is called being on top of the situation. Instead of letting the situations bring in the peace, and that's what we look for. We say, oh, this sattvic mind bahut pasand hai. I want my quiet, I want my studies of scriptures and my satsang, and only then I am going to be happy. Yes, we are not of that highest quality of sattvic mind. So, and we haven't even transcended the sattvic mind. So we need it. But Bhagwan says, this is just an example to show you that its sattvic mind is just a ladder. And once you've climbed up where you need to go, the ladder needs to be dropped. You don't still hang on to the ladder, for God's sake, when we are going up to a higher floor or wherever, onto the rooftop. The ladder is a mean. So the sattvic mind is a mean. So this saint actually was an example of someone who had transcended even the sattvic mind. Because the sattvic mind brings sukha, and so if the circumstances around him brought so-called dukkha, it did not touch him, because he carried his fulfillment and his tranquility with him. In fact, he brought that quality to the situation and not the other way around. So this example shows that seeking the sattvic mind, seeking the quietness and equanimity and serenity is also a kind of seeking, which makes us restless. And that restlessness, once again, is a kind of bondage. So a very sweet warning from Krishna to Arjuna to say, watch out even the subtleties of your mind. So it's not as simple as it appears. Of course, in the ordinary sense, when we rush through the Bhagavad Gita, we naturally just talk about the three kinds of gunas and say sattvic mind and rajasic and tamasic, and just try and strive to be your sattvic best. It's good enough. It's good enough in the beginning for the primary seeker, for the elementary seeker. It's good enough, but that's not our goal. As now we know, as advanced seekers, that's not the goal of our life. Goal of our life is to find the highest. What about the definition of rajasic? So rajasic is being described in verse number 7. And that is, Rajo ragatmakam vidhi Trishna sanga samodbhavam. Rajas is of the nature of passion. Passion here means a kind of a thirst, a kind of trishna to do this or that. And the word trishna itself has been used here. Beautiful word. Trishna sanga samodbhavan. There's a thirst and an attachment. To what actually? So it says here that there seems to be an endless stream of desires that we seem to be a victim of. The moment one desire is fulfilled, there's something else that always comes up. Maybe after a while, but it always comes up. Maybe someone in the society mentioned something, and then our desire for that same something was ignited by somebody is talking about it. How does it happen? Because we are constantly struggling with our own pangs. This pang or that pang has to be satisfied. So Trishna after Trishna is actually smothering down our inner peace. Because every time we get into a new act, an action is needed in order to satisfy any desire, right? So karma actually is a natural corollary action in order to fulfill any desire. But desire by itself is not going to get satisfied or fulfilled. So yes, it can get subsided by itself the moment you ignore it and say, oh, I don't have to entertain this desire. It's not part of my priority in this life. Human life is precious. Moment I do that, it can subside, but it cannot ever get fulfilled without the adjoining karma. So karma is needed, and that's how our slavery is designed. So what is desire actually? So our desire is nothing but a mental relationship we have. With what? With objects. Now these objects also we don't have a direct relationship with, because they are gross, they are inert. What happiness can they give us? Okay, so those objects seem to give us a sense of end of our craving for it. say, okay, now I have acquired it. That end of the craving is called the silence or the quietness or the silencing, let's call it. That we call sukha. We call it sukha. But it is that sukha that we are attached to. And so our relationship to desire is nothing but a mental relationship to objects which bring us some kind of sukha or the other. By objects, I also mean people, relationships, situations in the future. And what Bhagavan is trying to say when he uses the word Trishna in this verse is that it's not a one-time thing. If it was a one-time thing, we would say, okay, done. Now I'm ready for Bhagavan. I'm ready for you, Bhagavan. No, but it keeps rising and we are clinging on to more and more expectations or fulfillment of the future that may come from yet another desire and yet another and yet another. And therefore we have smothered our own quietness, the silence of our own mind. We have smothered it by our own effort of chasing the Krishna. So karma sangena, this is the quality of what kind of mind? This is the quality of the mind which is rajasic. It is completely attached to action and it is goaded on and on for acquiring this, and if one has acquired something, then for maintaining or preserving this or that, and then we are already crushed under the weight of the things that we need to acquire and to preserve the things that we have already acquired. For these things, for earning and for preserving and for procuring and for increasing and for preserving, for all this, what do we need? We need an endless amount of energy. And where are we putting this energy? Bhagavan has given us ample amount of energy and a very healthy body. It has given Shakti to the body. Shakti is strength. I have Shakti and I have Buddhi. I also have an intellect that can drive this body, and I have ample amount of time. 60, 80, 90, 100 years is not small if you consider that how much we can learn. Yes, it may be small amount of time for moksha, but this is not a mean grace. We have a big grace. But where have I put my Shakti, my Buddhi, my Samay, all these years? I have put it a major amount of time, I must say, 60 to 80%, in acquiring and possessing and reaching and qualifying for this or that. And even if we at this age are past that kind of, acquiring and possessing and preserving, we may be past that age. But we must remember, have we by any chance plunged our next generation into the same spiral? If we have, then we have neither freed ourselves nor the next generation. So the knowledge that we are gaining is actually only binding us into Janma Bandhan and Karma Bandhan. Why? Because we have not been able to look beyond this capacity of ours to keep earning and preserving and possessing and acquiring and accumulating, jama karna, which is called like padarth ka sangraha karna, sanchay karna, sangraha. But what is the solution? The solution is to make a mental shift. But I can't make a mental shift because everyone around me is busy doing the same thing. So they're acquiring or they're getting into new situations and travel plans and something of the world, some sansari acquisition, some sansari success. They are all into it and I am in contact with them. So my mind doesn't escape it. But to make a mental shift, first of all, I need to be a little quiet. I need to withdraw my mind and look inward within the quality of my own mind and then say, okay, is this the mischief my mind is playing? Okay, let me see, what can I do about it? What are the things I am seeking or want to seek? Not only for myself, because I may be past that age, but maybe for my next generation. Let me just drop it. Why? Because I know that I can shift my mental attitude from a very ambitious and Trishna-driven, thirst-driven Rajasic attitude by thinking about what? Oh, just think about Ozymandias, that great king, if you remember the poem by Shelley. So the two great trunks of legs lay trunkless in the desert sand. This is how he begins. Which means that no matter how powerful a king or a monarch has been, or how powerful a business magnate, or how powerful or how influential, these days it's influence and wealth that counts, no matter how much they have been able to have this power and influence and position, today these people lie in ruins. Nobody even knows about them after a few generations. When we put our mind to this, it's a simple trick, but it's a trick that works. For us ordinary people, it's a trick that works. Think about all the people of those who have achieved the highest greatness. In fact, there are people who have achieved greatness in terms of doing good for the others in society. At least they are remembered. But those who have only accumulated and gathered more wealth and position and power and status and applause, because that's what we crave actually when we are in society. Where is all that fame and position and power? And well, none of it even exists or is even remembered. My great-great-grandfather may have been a great Ayurvedic physician somewhere in Kashi many generations ago. I don't remember his name because so many generations have passed. But I know his legacy exists in terms of the wealth of knowledge in Ayurveda or whatever he may have created. So knowledge can carry on, and when we do good for the others in society, that carries on. But the name, the fame, I myself don't remember my 3 generations back, no matter what my great-grandfather had done. Secondly, remember what happened to their possessions. They were rich, influential people, yes, within our own families. And so they had palaces and they had mansions, and they had decorated the mansions with the most beautiful pieces of art or sculpture or painting or yes, where are they now? Where are those things? So they are also lying in ruins. Alright, so if I put my mind to this is a simple trick. Once again I'm reminding this is not the purpose of leading a divine life. It's a way of, the way our mind tricks us, it is to trick the mind back and saying, okay, I know the difference between Sat and Asat, so the mind, you cannot mislead me anymore. Now think about our own possessions. With what great pride and joy we have gathered these beautiful pieces around us, and of course they bring us joy, and they are and all pieces of art or sculpture or painting or even mansions, whatever our possessions, doesn't matter, they are all around us right now, and a couple of generations down the line they are also going to be in ruins, either scattered or lost or gone back to the earth in Panchatattva or burnt or gone to some museum, maybe even without an inscribed name on who first possessed it. How does it matter who possessed what? Because these possessions are inert, they are gross, they are inert matter. How can we take pride in possessing inert matter? It has no meaning at all in our lives. And we possess it with a sense of pride, that pride that we hold is held by the mind and the aham, that is the ahankar, and the intellect. And of course the body says this is mine, or the mind says this is mine. That is also, so the body, mind, intellect, aham is also inert. Inert, holding on to some inert object in the world. How crazy is that? And saying that this is the grand purpose of my life. I have achieved a lot. Maybe we have achieved a lot in material terms, but material Prakriti is the name given to material world. It has in the end no significance at all in the perspective of Krishna. So we say, okay, but I feel satisfied and happy and fulfilled. Yes, of course you do, because society has a way of offering you applause and appreciation and status for all these things that we acquire. Okay, never mind all that. Even if I become a vairagi and say, okay, I'm detached, Doesn't matter if the society appreciates or not, because the appreciation in any case is very ephemeral, even more short-lived than the actual objects that I possess. And the Rajasic mind, the Rajasic guna that Bhagwan is describing in verse 7 is completely investing all its Shakti and power and energy and buddhi and samay in all this. So can you imagine the Rajasic guna is doing what in this world? Is employing all its powers which Bhagwan has given us, the beautiful body and mind and buddhi and Shakti, and for two things: do your dharma and gain vivek and moksha. The purpose of this instrument, this vehicle, is to reach this destination. That this body, this vehicle is for me to do my dharma. Dharma means I have to, of course, complete all my duties, so that's okay. I cannot shirk them. Some people do. In the tamasic mode, they do shirk them. Now I am using this vehicle for something else altogether, to keep loading on top of it all kinds of objects and all kinds of possessions, and the vehicle is getting bogged down. It cannot move the way it should, freely, happily, joyously, and without a hitch. This vehicle itself is getting completely bogged down. So the Rajasic guna is this kind of a endless involvement in karma. Why? Because there is an endless desire which is being chased. So that desire has to be fulfilled by some karma or the other. Now, naturally here Bhagwan doesn't even need to explain how this is binding us. This is very obvious even to a very opaque mind, that we are binding ourselves and weighing ourselves down by using our mind, body, intellect, inert matter, binding ourselves to inert matter outside in the objects of the world. So inert combining with inert is equal to zero. It has no meaning at all. So it's a kind of a maniacal. It's like leading a crazy life. Bhagwan must be thinking, this is a crazy world. What are these people doing here? When we go to a madhouse, we think about them. They talk to the walls. But they think it's very important, and they emote, and they're feeling these real emotions in a madhouse. And we say, oh, they're so mad. But I'm sure we look equally crazy from the divine perspective. I'm quite sure about that. Now, Bhagwan says that this Rajasic guna is also binding you. How? In the second line, Tani badhnati kaunteya karma sangena dehinam. Because you have to do karma in order to satisfy some trishna. I like the word trishna. And you're attached to your trishna, your thirst. There's a thirst. That thirst is now driving you to karma, and this karma is now binding you because you can't get out of it. You think, ab to ye to karna hi hai, I have to finish this and that. Once again I am saying, even if we are beyond it, we still entertain these desires and karmas for our family or near or dear ones or the next generation. Basically, it is a slavish state of mind, because I am a slave of my desires, my trishna. So how can I be free? So this doesn't need much explanation as to how we are binding ourselves. Now, the question arises, do you mean to say Krishna did not do any action? Of course he did action. He is the charioteer of Arjuna. He has promised to get him through the battle. So that is karma. Okay, and he has come and taken an avatar. And he says, I take avatar so that I can save the world from evil. That is karma. And of course he does so many beautiful leelas. And those leelas are karma. So do you mean to say Krishna is going to be bound? Because Bhagwan says, karma sangena dehinam. That your body is now engaged with karma, and you have become bound to your karma, which your body and mind is doing. Okay, so here's the answer. Of course, we cannot live in this world without karma. That would be impossible. Since we are here We have to do our karma, our duties, and that's what Krishna is also doing. His duty is to save the world from evil. Okay, so I am here to save the world, and so he does his karma. How come he doesn't get bound? Simple. And we have heard this concept before. We may have forgotten it, but we have heard it. The concept is that I am doing my karma, but I am not attached to what phala it will bring me. You see, the phala is what we think is the sukha, the happiness, the sukha will come out of that action. So I am not even attached to my karma. I am attached to the sukha which that karma will bring me. Therefore, the attachment again is only and only to sukha. So, how come Bhagavan doesn't get bound? Although he is doing so much of karma, and he has to do it because he has come into this sansar like we have come. So he has already explained in chapter 9, verse number 9 of chapter 9. He says, Nacha mam tani karmani. I am detached from the actions that I am doing. Krishna is saying in the 9th chapter. Nibadhanti dhananjayaha. Therefore I am not bound. Why? Because udasena vadasenam. Udasena. I am quite detached, quite vairagi from what might happen. But I am doing my 100% duty of what I have been asked to do. Udasena. Udasen, detached, vairagi. Asaktam teshu karmasu. Asaktam. I do my duty but in a detached way. I don't consider myself as karta and bhokta. Karta meaning I am the doer of the action. Bhokta, therefore I must enjoy the result of my action. I insist upon it. This insistence of a bhokta is what is causing us sorrow. Why? Because the result will not always be according to our desire and according to our expectation. And therefore, when it is not to our expectation, we are plunging into sorrow. The moment we plunge into sorrow, I said the definition of sorrow is we are bound completely by agyan, not knowing what is the truth, in the sense I am a slave of that desire for sukha. So anything that doesn't happen according to my likes and my dislikes, or doesn't happen according to my dislikes, is going to bring me sorrow. The moment I can experience sorrow, I can be very sure that I am an agyani. I do not have gyan. If I had gyan, I would know that everything is impermanent. I, as a dehi, as the inhabitor of this world, I am permanent, and so is the divine Krishna, and nothing else besides that matters. If I only hold on to that one truth, there is gyan. When there is this gyan, where is the room for sorrow? There is no room for sorrow. So, Krishna is also doing karma, but not getting bound by it. Now, it is the phala, the fruit which is binding us. Now, the thing is, the moment the mind is cleared from all these clouds of attachment, as Bhagavan said, Prakashakam, he says, I, consciousness, Krishna, will automatically shine through your mind. The mind will be like a beautiful reflecting medium, and the moment you drop this kind of attachment and become vairagi, the mind moves automatically towards sattvic state of mind. It is that sattvic state of mind which will take us finally to the divine. But what about the third kind of guna? Am I also capable of the third kind of guna? Yes, of course, that is the tamasic state of mind. And that is verse number 8. Tamasattva jnanajam vidhi mohanam sarve dehinam. Inertia, total indolence, laziness, a kind of alasya, nidra. Oh, in the second line itself he says, Pramadalasya nidrabhihi tannibadhnati bharata. How does it bind us? Naturally, this doesn't need an explanation at all. We are bound when we are heedless and dull and not heeding to the higher call. In fact, agyan is not knowing the truth. That way we are all agyani. Agyan is when we are not even seeking the truth, not wanting to know the truth, and saying that, oh, I don't think there is any such thing. This is called heedlessness, pramad. I don't care. This heedlessness is driving us naturally further and further away from Bhagwan. We are unmindful of the divine. So what is our aspiration then? It is not the desire. Tamasic person is so lazy, he is not even desirous of gaining something higher in the world. Oh, I want to be the biggest business magnate here. I want to be the greatest artist over here. I want my family to study in the highest, children to study in the best institute. No such ambition. A person doesn't even entertain any such sansari ambition. So can you imagine? Such a person then is said to have no heed or no sense of अपना कर्तव्य क्या है, अकर्तव्य क्या है. Things I should not do, things I should do. So there are people who will just take the wealth of their family and they will overspend. That is called akartavya. It's not supposed to be done. Overspending and excessive spending in ostentation. Ostentation means trying to display the wealth. Why display so much of wealth? Extravagance. All this is akartavya. And what is akartavya? This tamasic person doesn't even heed that. Yeah, I'm sure many of us have seen such people. And that such a person who doesn't even know kartavya, akartavya, sat, asat, does not bothered about sat, asat, in fact, is now focused on what? I just want my bodily comfort, and Bhagavan says, pramada alasya nidra, wants more and more sleep, more than that is required for the healthy body, sleep, and is now attached to too much of laziness. How does it bind us? Of course, it binds us with complete agyan. It drives us, tamasic mode, tamasic guna drives us further and further away from God. If I don't know sat and asat, if my mind, I don't want to wake up my mind and I don't want to use the mind for heeding the truth, for finding out the truth. And I keep saying, no, I'm not capable of it. There's too much of subtlety and confusion in this truth that you're talking about, or God, or and so there is no desire to seek. All these gunas coexist in all of us, tamasic, rajasic and sattvic. The personality emerges only and only when we find one dominant quality over the other, sattvic or rajasic or tamasic. What is the dominant quality? That we have to cultivate. That is the simple message of Krishna. That you have the choice right now to cultivate. Why cultivate? Because all our habits that we are forming right now. What are habits again? Habits are nothing but repeated tendencies. These habits which are repeated tendencies and which I allow myself to practice day in and day out become crystallized into my personality. And therefore I inherit a certain personality in the next life. We know this truth already. How compelling it is. Then we say that, somehow I don't know why, but I am driven towards going to this ashram or seeking out that Swami and finding out the truth. Or I have this craving to dress up nicely and go to the next party. Whatever our cravings, it doesn't matter. It is being driven by, that's why it's called bondage, because we are not even in control. It's almost as if someone else is whipping us into action. Now Bhagavan says, yes, you can be in control if you just turn inward, watch the guna that you are in and feel not compelled by it, driven by it, but being able to control it by saying, I want to move towards sattva. Today I may not feel like meditating or taking up a scripture or finding out a new video of some Swamiji or reading a new chapter. I'm just going to make a timetable that in this week I'm going to read only 2 chapters. Make it achievable, reachable, small goals. Before you know it, in 40 days, it becomes a habit. And then you say, oh, I haven't read this chapter. My craving now will be to go towards the reading or tapa or japa or meditation, whatever it is that you have taken up. And the same applies to any other habit. The moment I go out and become extroverted, the more my mind and body craves for that extroversion. What is the way out? What's the way out? Am I bound by these 3 chains? So this we will take up next time. And we will also see, first of all, how to recognize these qualities in us. In order to be free, I have to recognize it. So there will be some more description on how to recognize it within ourselves so that we can be free and closer to Bhagwan, the highest truth, the supreme truth. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om.